How do one make a case for Christianity in this secular world where logic and evidence and even politics are highly regarded? I mean, how do we contend when Christianity is often viewed as unnecessary, outdated, or illogical? Also, how do we move when technological advancement and modern science have made belief in God intellectually obsolete? I mean, how do we navigate through these things? And after reading Tim Keller's chapter 12, 11, 12, and the prologue, I believe that the best way to meet with secular minds in this age is to use a rational case, a rational defense for Christianity, because belief in Christianity is rational because Christianity does not ask people to abandon logic, evidence, history, morality, or even human experience, but instead it provide a coherent explanation for them. Christianity attempts to explain the reality as it actually is rather than merely offering emotional comfort or subjective spirituality. And I believe that the resurrection is one of the most rational case for Christianity and not merely an emotional appeal or a blind leap of faith within Christianity. I believe that it functions as the central historical and logical defense for the Christian worldview. I mean, the entire faith stands or falls on whether Jesus really rose from the dead. I mean, even the Apostle Paul admitted this directly when he argued that if Christ was not raised, the Christian faith is empty and false. I mean, what makes the resurrection significant is not just the claim itself, but the historical aftermath surrounding it. One of the strongest points is the radical transformation of the disciples. I mean, before the crucifixions, the disciples were portrayed as fearful, scattered, confused, defeated. Uh, Peter the apostle publicly denied Jesus. The disciples hid in fear after the crucifixion because they believed that the movement was over. Yet something occurred that transformed these same men into bold proclaimers willing to suffer persecution, imprisonment, social rejection, and death while continuing to proclaim that Jesus had risen physically, risen physically from the dead. I mean, we have to understand this. The time that they were living in, this happened within a hostile. It was very a hostile or hostile Jewish environment, monotheistic. And that matters historically because first century Jews were not expecting a crucified Messiah who will rise bodily in the middle of history. I mean, crucifixion was viewed as humiliation and a divine curse. If you look it up in the Old Testament, it says to hang on a tree, a man, whoever is hung on a tree is cursed. So claiming a crucified man was Lord was culturally disastrous, not advantageous. Christianity offered the disciples no immediate worldly gain, no political power, no wealth, no comfort, or social prestige. In many cases, it just brought them the opposite: suffering, persecution, and death. And that creates a major historical question. Like, what can explain the explosive transformation of these men and the rapid growth of the early church in the midst of suffering and persecution? And yet, the church, when you read the book of Acts, it says, and yet the church grew. It seems like the more that the enemy was applying pressure, and the more the church was just growing and exploding. And that we know was all God's doing. But what really gets me is the conversions of Paul the Apostle and James the Just. Paul was, there's no way that you're going to say, and I've heard this plenty of time where people say, oh, Christianity was invented by Paul and all these things. There was no way that Paul could have psychologically primed was he primed to invent Christianity. I mean, he actively persecuted it. And likewise, James the Just, Jesus' brother, if you read the book of John, it tells you that they did not believe him. They thought he was just making outrageous claims. And he moves from skepticism to becoming a leader in the church. So something powerful occurred enough to convince these men who were not predisposed believers. And I believe that the resurrection uniquely ties Christianity together with philosophically. If Christ truly rose, then his claims about God, sin, judgment, salvation, and human identity carry divine authority. The resurrection becomes God's vindication of Jesus' message. Without the resurrection, Christianity collapsed into merely another moral system. With it, Christianity becomes a historical claim about reality itself. And we can all agree because we find secular sources who have also validated Jesus as an historical figure. I mean, what good would it bring these people who were enemies of Christianity or enemies of Christ, like Josephus, to talk about Jesus? If Jesus wasn't who he said he was, that even his enemies are testifying for him. So I'm going to leave this with this thought. I believe that Christianity did not spread merely because people like Jesus' teaching. Because around that time, many teachers existed in the ancient world. I believe that Christianity exploded because ordinary people became convinced that something extraordinary happened in history, that Jesus truly rose from the dead. And that's why Christianity persists today. And no matter what has been done to stop it or curb it or to defeat it, it will not happen because this is God's doing.